Welcome, everybody, to Resilience at the Speed of Life. I'm John Previtera here with Kellie Mix, and today is part two of our series. We're going to do things a little bit different today. In February of this year, Sixth Wing and AFN had their first together on-site team building event, so to speak. And that's the first time that I got to meet Miss Kellie Mix. And we sat down on a park bench right there on Orange Avenue in Coronado, and we had a fun, comfortable, but meaningful conversation. And we want to replicate that tone with the audience today. We want it to be more conversational. We want you, the audience, to feel like you can chime in and ask questions or share insights. But be warned, we're also going to deliberately engage with you with some pointed questions throughout our chat. For us, success today in this conversation, success is we've created an environment where we can all be vulnerable and be open and share with each other some of the stressors that are impacting our day to day and some of the tactics, techniques, and procedures that we use at our level to assuage some of that burnout risk and to build resilience and essentially just to recharge our batteries. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kellie.
I love the title that Betsy used for today's event, Resilience at the Speed of Life, and what it has caused me to stop and slow down and reflect on is everyone, I think, can relate to this as being a high schooler, right? And you can't wait to get your driver's license because when you get your driver's license, that means you have freedom of movement from your parents and from your house. And then you arrive at that moment and you very quickly realize, oh, I have to shuttle siblings, or I have car taxes, or I have payments, right? And so that is like our first realization where we've got the sense of freedom without realizing the pressure that maybe that moment kind of brings. And then you start to think, well, when I get to my 20s and I start to launch from the house, I'm going to be on my own and I'm going to have it all figured out. And you very quickly realize, like, oh, my job doesn't pay that much, or school is really stressful, and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And then you arrive at the next decade of your 30s of like, okay, now this is when I'm going to figure it out. I'm in the early stages of raising a family or figuring it out. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is every decade through life, right? We all experience these stressors and these pressures. It just feels and looks differently depending on the season you're in. And so when you think of resilience at the speed of life, it's really slowing down and reflecting on, well, how do I move through this season with a degree of intentionality and recovery so that I can continue to, perform at the level that I want to. And so, John, I'm curious, as we talk about the resilience at the speed of life, like what are some of the one analogy we use when we talk about resilience at Six Wing is this idea of a chain and how often we don't see the stressors that are impacting the chain, but we still continue to carry that load. What kind of load are you experiencing right now?
I'll tell you what, since I can't believe the Colorado event was just a month ago, but since the Colorado event, I have done I have continued to do back to back every other week, traveling to the client site in San Diego where I'm on stage, have to perform the pressure of performing. While that's going on, I got a kitchen remodel going on. So that's kind of like I'm escaping some of that stress, but at the same time, the family is dealing with all that stress. So that's like that is transferring to me. It's so hard to maintain healthy habits and healthy eating with a Ninja air fryer and a rice cooker and a barbecue grill.
I'm sure you've gotten really creative.
You'd be surprised what a Ninja air fryer can cook. At the same time, my nephew, who is now he's full time in college, but he's a senior in high school. He's applying to schools, so I'm trying to shape and guide him and be positive, but let him be who he wants to be all at the same time. Everything everything just feels so very compressed. It's October, it's November, it's the last quarter. The year's coming to an end. I got a vision board I'm supposed to be working on. Wait, what? And everything feels like it's just getting slammed together. And what ends up happening is I deprioritize myself. I don't put myself first. And I can feel it. I'm certainly not at a crisis point, but I'm having to be very self-aware and very deliberate in how I make sure I create time to recharge and how I am intentional about building my own resilience. So that's kind of where I am. Like it feels like a ratchet strap around my chest and just like one little click at a time, like and I have to be intentional about how I relieve that pressure.
I
How's it
love
been
the
for you since Colorado?
Well, yeah, I love the analogy. The visual of the ratchet strap I relate to so much because mine has felt very tight, maybe like a corset since the Colorado event that we did. And it just is like a little too tight right now. And I totally relate to the deprioritizing of the self just to like make sure that everything is continuing to hum along. I'm curious with Bridget and Laura being here, a lot of the Sixth Wing team has been running for a long time. Bridget, what is it feeling like for you in terms of your load and how you're managing it?
I'm laughing as we all are like, oh, the like tightness. Because I think it feels we are juggling as an organization like a big delivery sprint while setting up 2026, while wrapping up the year, and so the juggling, like it feels, and it's interesting. I was like, does mine feel like a band getting tighter? Or it's like, for me, I always go like it's stretching too thin, like it's stretching too thin. But it's the same idea of the feeling of tension. And
Hmm.
so I think like that tension feeling is definitely present in me, and as I listen to everyone else, I'm like, we are all sharing this right now.
How does the tension usually show up? Or like, how do you know it's present?
I think there was a time in my life when I used to tell myself all these great stories that like I thrived in times like this and I like it and it's an adrenaline rush and all these other like how to do more of it stories. I think Kellie, as you were talking through like the different decades, one of the gift as I end this decade of my 40s is not having as many of those narratives that feel good in the short term but are way less like are not honest and therefore are not serving me for the long term. So I noticed pretty easily and I anticipated. I think a thing about my personality is I actually pre-anticipate periods like this. And so for me, the strain starts to build actually in a window before it when I don't actually need to be feeling the strain at that point yet. But the mere fact of knowing it's coming starts the process for me sooner than
Hmm.
where I actually am. Um, One thing I think about a lot in these times is like we all want the big breaks. I always want the big break. Like I want a week on a beach in Maui with a surfboard and no time constraints and not one place to be at any specific time. But what I remind myself in these times is like find the space inside of every day in its little tiny bits of space. Like instead of just being like on or off a light switch. And so what I start to crave is it being off. Like how do I get a lot more intentional about finding little tiny gaps inside of the day?
Hmm.
Bridget,
And it's something, go ahead, John.
you said I thrive in situations like this. It reminded me of Brian and Matt's fireside chat at LTL, where Lindsay was grilling Brian, and he said, "Look, yes, there are times when we're going to have to do hard shit. We know that we can when we have to. That doesn't mean that should be the SOP or the default setting." So, and you sound like for you that for me as well. We're going to talk about the mental shift and how we look at how we go about our day to day. But that really struck a note with me. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just going to say the anticipation of the event or the stress periods, right? The fact that you're able to have an awareness around that is awesome. And subconsciously, it might even be kicking in even sooner than when you're consciously aware of feeling the anticipation. And so finding space in the times of tension, which I think that is also a learned skill because naturally in the times of tension, we're just like, ooh, I just need to like push harder and push through it. Where it's like, no, those little breaks. Nick Petrie talks about the 1-1-1 strategy. And I know that I need to adopt this, but I still haven't. There's a level of resistance because the one day off a month and the one long weekend a quarter and the one long break a year, I'm like, oh, but how do I fit that in? So anyways, a lot of that resonated. Laura, I'm curious, what load are you carrying right now?
You said earlier, Kelly, when you started talking, that sometimes some of the loads are invisible. And in that moment, I had a moment, I thought, oh, I can see a lot of the loads that I'm carrying, but there's some that I'm choosing not to look at. But that doesn't make them go away. Like just because I'm pretending it's not there doesn't mean it's not there. And so I think it's like this, what are the invisible? I was thinking, what are the invisible loads or the loads I'm choosing not to give my time and attention to that might be the ones that cause the cracks that show up in the loads that I'm paying attention to. And so loads that I feel like I'm carrying right now. Some loads I can't talk about.
That's fair.
Kelly knows what I'm talking about. The current spin that we're in for work. And then having kids who are both like in that lovely phase of teenagerism where they're super sweet one day and like you want to strangle them the next, or maybe minute to minute. So I think kids, and then I would say like the invisible load, the one that I've been claiming is invisible, is what my spouse is doing. And I think that has been being handled really well, but that doesn't mean that it comes without weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that to me, as Bridget said, is a weight where I'm like, I know how to do this. I can do this. I can thrive under this because it's a narrative that we've had for so long. Like, I know how to carry these weights. I can do it. And as you were talking about the corset and Bridget was talking about the stretching and John was talking about like the strap getting ratcheted, I was thinking like, what does it feel like to me? And to me, it feels like this combination of like a weight that I think I feel like on my shoulders and noise. It feels noisy, like in my head a little bit. And what I do to quiet that noise, I get super scheduled. Like all of you who can see the schedule, you'll know when I'm stressed because I will block like every hour of the day for things that I need to remember to do. Because the noise is so much that my ability to like remember and flow in and out of things feels a little outside of my control. So I like start to time block a lot. And I can feel that the weight is there. This has given me a moment to relax because I'm like, oh, this is why at bedtime, when I'm putting the kids to bed and they start their banter, that I usually try to find really cute and sweet because I know it's not going to last forever, that my fuse is way shorter and I'm like, and so, yeah, I think this is just like an awareness that the invisible loads aren't without weight. Yeah.
Laura, we're going to come back to what techniques are we using, but what you said, what I'm choosing not to give my time to, that's powerful. And then you follow that up with the time blocking as a way to lessen lessen some of that weight. Good stuff.
I think with the time blocking too, what came, it's like when we're in seasons of stress or when anyone is kind of in a state of like tension, um, it's like finding ways to have control and agency to move through those is what helps give us some of that. Um, and then Laura, the time blocking was really funny because even John and I trying to get time together he was like, the only time available on your calendar is at 6 a.m. my
6
time.
a.m.
And I'm
Like,
I'm
again?
sorry. Don't do it.
Yeah. So I've had to be very deliberate myself in looking for opportunities to negate some of that burnout risk. And it's two major things coming out of LTL in Colorado, where we presented this content to the audience and we talked about the 3 R's, with the first R being paying attention to our breathing, where the breath goes, the body will follow. And we talked about the de-stress breath. And then we talked about the second R is ready, where get up, engage your body, burn off some of those performance enhancing hormones that our autonomic system kicks in when we're in that fight or flight mode. And then the last one was relate to somebody. So with that in one ear, and then in the other ear, I wanted to give a shout out to Arena Labs, because Kellie and I are both going through this high performance medical coaching content where we're using biometric devices to track certain indicators in our body. First of all, I've started meditating again, which I had kind of slacked off before Colorado. So I've been 15 minutes every morning just listening on the Waking Up app. I now very deliberately do the de-stress breath. I do 3 breaths 3 times a day, morning, noon, and end of the day. And I try to get up from behind my desk, go outside so I can see the sun. And whether I have time to take a walk in the woods, whether I let the dogs out of the kennel, whatever, interact with nature, with somebody in the house, or with a pet. But for me, the big change has been using biometrics to have a measurable indicator on how I'm doing, specifically the HRV, heart rate variability. Those are some of the things that I've been doing to be deliberate and self-aware. What about you, Kellie?
Well, John, when we started this call, I think we all kind of acknowledged like what gets deprioritized first in these times of pressure is our own selves. And so it was actually you maybe a few weeks ago when we were talking and you were telling me how you were implementing all of these different things. And I was like, wow, I don't think I've moved my body intentionally in about a month since LTL because I've just been on the road and I've been grinding. And, but it was in that moment that I was like, but I can do a de-stress breath or the physiological sigh. And I have been doing that more regularly. And Laura, I don't know if this would help around bedtime, but I did it in the kitchen the other night during dinner because I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and they're running around like crazy. And I'm like, I just need access to the stove without any little humans around it. Right. And so I could feel my nervous system kind of getting activated. And I just did I think I did 10 de-stress breaths in that moment. So I was like, I don't want to be in this mindset. And it did help, it took a minute for my body to follow. What do you say, John? Where the breath goes, the body goes.
That's right.
It's like understanding that there's going to be that lag, but it did come. Like I started to do the breaths and then in 5 minutes, it was like, oh, I actually feel a lot better moving through this dinner now.
Well, just the self-awareness that comes when you commit to, I'm going to do this breath now. You're like, oh, wow, I needed that breath. That self-awareness for me is like, you gain right away because you're back in the moment.
Yes. Betsy, I'm curious, do you have any techniques to help yourself de-stress in the moment?
Actually, I took away the breath from that conference. And in fact, I hope for the audience, you guys will walk us through that so that people who are watching this later can get that. That's been incredibly helpful to me. And the other thing that's been very helpful is I live in Arizona. So with the seasons finally changing, we can be outside, without searing to death and And so it's nice to get out back into nature with our dogs and with each other. So if we have a particularly busy day, because my husband and I work in the same place in the same office, we both have our own businesses, we'll just take our lunch break walking the dogs in the beautiful sunshine, and that's our couple catch up time too. Or I've got this problem, or I've got this thing. And so for me, when the seasons change here, it's a huge impact on how I can take the time I need to de-stress versus in the summer, we got to be out the door by 6 a.m. every day. And then it just feels like a crunch. So that's one way we're doing it, is getting outside more now that we can. I just want to reiterate the breath technique. I no longer lay in bed with all this anxiety, not only of what's going on in the moment. I have a bad tendency to relive everything that I did wrong in the past. Or
So you're a ruminator.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have a tendency, like I used to do rescue, all bad, it's funny, but that breath technique has taken all of that away. I've just let it go. It's really powerful. And I was thinking the other night, I was getting into bed, I was like, I haven't thought of that in a while, and that's a really good thing. So thank you. Please lead everyone through the breath because it's been so helpful. Yeah.
John, you want to do a quick demo?
A demo of the de-stress breath, which is the physiological side, same deal. Sure. It's two, it's a, it's the deepest inhale breath you can inhale through your nose, and then another little one on top of it so you can fully inflate your lungs. And then it's a long, I like to say 10 to 12 second exhale. I count 1,000, 2, 1,000 in my head as I'm exhaling out of my mouth. Now, if for some reason, maybe you're masked up, maybe you're traveling, maybe you're sick and you've got a mask on, having a mask on does in no way inhibits the physiological benefit from this. So just do it whatever way is necessary given your situation. So for me, it's a quick inhale through my nose, a second one on top of that, and then a long exhale.
So you do a slow inhale.
No, I do it as in about 3 seconds.
Okay.
I know that, and we don't want to get too science nerdy here, but I know that it's really about how the body responds to the exhale being longer than the inhale. So if my inhale is about 2.5 to 3 seconds, and I exhale for 12, and I do that 3 times in a row,
And not get lightheaded and pass out.
and not right, I'm usually sitting down, but yes, absolutely. And that's pretty much it. But I'll do 3 in a row. The other thing I don't even know if I should mention this because I haven't given any background on it. After yoga, I will do, does anybody know what the Wim Hof breathing method is? The Iceman Wim Hof, the 30 inhale, exhale in an effort to get as much of the CO2 out of your blood as possible, which changes your blood. I want to say alkalinity, but I don't think that's the right word. Can somebody help me? It changes your blood's pH and helps reset heart rate, stress response, all of that. That's 30 to 40 deep inhalations and exhalations. At the end of the last exhalation, you hold the exhale for as long as you're comfortable. Then you inhale for 10 seconds and you hold that until you start again. Be advised, if you're doing this after hot yoga in the locker room, brace yourself in case you fall forward and pass out. You don't donk your head on the edge of the open door of the locker. A friend, maybe it was a friend that did that.
For a friend.
So there's lots of breathing techniques out there, right? Whichever one works for you. The de-stress breath for me is quick, it's easy, and like you said, Kelly, I can literally feel the effects, but the self-awareness that it brings, because I find myself, you need to do a de-stress breath. Well, that automatically brings me back mindful. And that's the problem with rumination, Betsy, when we're not in the moment and our head starts spinning.
You know what I just
Long
realized
answer.
is I just grew up. I grew up as a swimmer, and every time before I would race, I would inhale and then do a really long exhale. not realizing, I just realized at this moment that it was a de-stress breath. What I told myself, though, was that I was eliminating all the carbon dioxide in my system so that I had maximum staying power for the sprint that my body was about to go do.
A great book on that, if you want to deep dive on that theory, it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yep.
And it's all about how we can deliberately engage body systems for a desired outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good book. May I ask, would you guys mind reviewing the 3 R's again? Because I know that's one area that is a good tool, but I haven't been very good at implementing it. And I was wondering if you could give me a refresher course on the 3 R's.
I wanted to take an opportunity to share. Can you guys see the 3 R's?
Yes.
Okay. Kellie, you want to run through this? Or you want me to go through it? How's that?
Is it possible to put it in present mode, John?
It's possible. I just don't know what it's going to do to the whole setup here, but let's try it. What can you see now? Oh, we're in present mode. Perfect. Okay, so the 3 R's.
Can you switch screens possibly? Putting you on the spot. I also have it.
Probably not. How about we do this? I'm just going to talk us through it because I don't trust what's going to happen here. The 3 R's. Why is it 3 R's? This one's for Laura. Because under stress, our channel capacity or our ability to juggle multiple things at once is seriously inhibited by that stress. That's why we learn as children to stop, drop, and roll. That's why we dial 911 for the police. All the immediate action drills that we are taught are based on threes because our channel capacity is inhibited. So if you remember, if you're stressed out in the moment, the 3 R's reset is to use your breath to downshift your nervous system in the way that Kellie and I and everybody else have continued to share, whether it's box breathing, whether it's a psychological, physiological sigh, or the de-stress breath, as Dr. Huberman calls it. Lots of different breathing methods. The second R is for ready, and it refers to your body's ability to loosen tension when you move your feet. Kellie took us through the sympathetic and parasympathetic, adrenaline being the primary hormone that is excreted when we go into fight or flight. The half-life of adrenaline is about 2 minutes. But if you're sitting behind your desk and adrenaline is followed by cortisol and now it starts to pile up and have that compounding effect on your body, if you get up and move, you can begin to give your body the opportunity to burn off that adrenaline, that epinephrine and norepinephrine and that cortisol. So moving, walking down to the water cooler, if you're in the office, walking around the house or around the block, or it doesn't matter, just move your body.
John,
and then
can I interrupt you?
Yes, ma'am.
Because Bridget also has a fun fact around moving your body and how sometimes, as long as you tell yourself when you are going to move, right, Bridget, you have some, would you mind sharing?
Sure. There's some interesting research. It's in the book called Burnout, which is more focused on women in burnout. But the Nagoski sisters, they did some research, and basically you can use Ready, exactly what you're saying, John, and it doesn't have to be time linked to the event. So you can pick an event that's in your past that you can tell is still sort of active, and they call it completing the cycle. Like, the problem is we don't complete the cycle. And you can later, or on a random walk, or even Betsy, like when you're talking about like an old memory that keeps coming up, you can go on a walk and say, like, I'm using this movement. My intention is to complete the cycle and kind of burn off the energy that in the event could be weeks or months or years ago. And what the research shows is that still helps like bleed the event down. So if you had I don't know, you got super frustrated about something on a Monday and you can tell it's still just in your head on a Thursday, literally on your walk or whatever, you can burn that off later, which I think is really important because so many of us don't do it in the moment, but then the same thing keeps coming up. So pretty interesting.
Super cool.
I love the mindset component around that, Bridget. And like, it's like, okay, if I shift my mindset to know I'm doing this at this time, then I can still complete the stress cycle. And it made me think of like another way that I have been trying to ready or move my body is shifting my mindset around vacuuming the floor at the end of every night because we have crumbs everywhere. I'm like, well, this is how I'm moving my body today. This is me doing the 3 R's. And I'm hoping that the intent of shifting my mindset around that like normal daily activity will have the intended impact of maybe completing some of the stress cycles throughout the day. Sorry, John.
Love it.
Oh, back to you for relate.
Relate. Yes. Make human talk to somebody. When we engage with calm people that we have relationships with, our nervous systems actually, they'll synchronize. You can co-regulate with somebody else who's not in the same stress, scenario you are. So find an opportunity when you get up to take that walk away from your desk to engage with somebody. And that's the 3 R's.
And maybe not engage with someone who's as activated by the email you just received. Someone who's not on that same email thread, right?
Yeah, right.
That's why I like my dog walks, because my husband doesn't participate in this world at all. So he gets to hear it all, and I get to hear it back from him. And Bridget, it was interesting what you were saying, because I've used the opportunity this week. There was something that has been heavy with me for quite some time with, as most of you know, I have a store. And I finally did this visualization where I snipped the string and released the weight, and then I went soaring up in the air. So while breathing. So kind of similar to that. But yeah, whatever we got to do. But you guys definitely provide a really great foundation for how to even get started. So,
Betsy, where'd you get that visualization from? I love it.
This is probably a little bit of a tangent, but I live in Sedona, Arizona, which is woo-woo central. And right now it's Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde is about dealing with the things from the past so you can move forward into the future. And I said, instead of getting all woo-woo about it, I said, you know what? Let's deal with this thing from the past so I can move forward into the future. So it was triggered by Mercury retrograde.
I'll jump in with Betsy on the woo-woo train. A modality that's been really, really helpful for me for years, over a decade now, is a form of light touch massage called craniosacral therapy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the mechanical theory of it is that your cerebral spinal fluid is an independent system in your body that has its own pulse. Again, it's not your heartbeat pulse, it's its own pulse, and that regulating that can do all sorts of, helpful and amazing things. There are 2 tiers of craniosacral practice. The tier 1 is like that mechanical piece. And the tier 2 piece gets a little bit more into like the crossover of energetic. For me, there is no question that there is no other modality that is as direct of a link directly to my nervous system state and the ability to shift it with longer impact than craniosacral. So I say all of that to set it up because, Betsy, intuitively, you got to my craniosacral therapist. I've had 2 amazing ones. There is a big belief of like cords and attachments in people who do a lot of energy work, and that we often, have cords to events or people in a way that isn't serving us. And so that intentionality of like what cords, like what's attached to me that I no longer need is really interesting. So Betsy, I also have done visualization in the past and about like this idea of attachments, energetic attachments, and like intentionally choosing the ones you want to keep and what you want them to look like the distance. Often, my kids are big, they're 23 to 16, but like energetically considering like what's the length of the attachment I want as they've gotten older and are much more independent, as opposed to like the people who try to cling on and hold their kids close as their kid is trying to separate. So I think, Betsy, when you said it, I was smiling because I was like, oh, this has worked well in my life too.
Thank you for that.
Both very powerful shares though. So thank you
Yes,
both for
thank you.
being so vulnerable. That was awesome.
I know, but
And part
it,
of
oh, sorry. I was just going to say it was because of you guys that I actually left the conference with, after, because I listened to a couple of your presentations. And by implementing just the simplest things with the breath, it actually led me down the path of realizing I'm a ruminator, right? And here's the things that I need to start doing. But truthfully, in the months that we've not been together, it has really positive. What you guys taught that day has seriously changed my life for the good. And so that's why, we're having this talk today, because I want you to share those strategies with anyone who's listening.
Betsy, what were you expecting to hear today that we haven't talked about yet? I'm just
Oh,
looking at the clock. Is there
yeah.
something specific?
Well, I think you also talked about the chain and you talked about stronger. And I don't know if we have enough time to dive into all those, but covering the breath work and the 3 R's, I think is critical because that's very much the base of, getting started, I think, down the right path.
Sure. And Kelly and I had every intention. We were gonna kind of end with the stronger strategies if we had time. You know, I've always referred to resilience. I literally say to put on my armor or to grab my shield, right? That is the resilience. But just just from all the content that we have been absorbing, whether it was from Arena Labs, the books that Kelly and I decided to read, or the training that we got from the Adeption and Petrie, and I'm starting to shift my perspective from thinking of it as an armor or a shield to this is a muscle. This is a muscle that needs to be exercised. It needs to be trained. The days of thinking about resilience from a reactive perspective, like I get knocked down and I get up again. Yeah, that's great. But let's how about we anticipate that there's a chance something's coming that might knock us down and be proactive in building that resilience muscle. And I think the stronger strategies for those of us that saw this in Colorado, this is being shared right now. So great. The stronger strategies are Sixth Wing's way of capturing that mindset shift in a way that something that we can remember, something that we can focus and customize because it's going to be different for each one of us. Over
John,
to you, Kelly.
I think what you were saying about proactively training the muscle, the word that keeps coming to mind for me is like intentionality. And with all of these stronger strategies, they're built on some of Nick Petrie's research around like the 8 patterns of high performers in an organization. And so, for those that are maybe listening and can't see the slide, it's like each letter in the word stronger represents one of those patterns, and kind of how to um, build in intentionality in the way that we move through the different seasons of life of where we started, right? And I think all of these, John, are like each of them are a muscle. Each of the stronger strategies is a muscle. And what I guess one thing I want to call out is like the macro forces at play in any given organization often don't allow us to create it's like a very hard muscle to train, I guess is what I'm getting at, because of like setting boundaries between work and home. What does that look like, and how can you do that in a way that clearly articulates to your team, these are my boundaries, and still, continue to perform at a high level at work and have those boundaries respected when you're at home, or transitioning with intention, when you're building that muscle. It could look a number of different ways for people, whether it's a visualization of putting on your superhero cape when you're going from home to pick up your kids, or going from work to pick up your kids, or maybe it's writing a to-do list at the end of the day. But it's like when you're building a new muscle, it's very hard. And so it requires a lot of intentionality.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I
curious,
think
Laura. Oh, go ahead.
no, please continue.
I was going to ask
I was
Laura
gonna,
because
I was
she,
gonna pick it up on R and O, but if
okay.
we're gonna no, go for it. We've got time.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to ask Laura, which of these resonate most with her. She's seen them a few times now, and maybe either which one you're intentionally building or you think could use more
Good
attention.
question. Good question. I would say the one I have probably been working on the most prior to the Leadership That Lifts event was the N, nurture a multifaceted identity. I think that I have historically been pretty good at wearing everyone else's identity and the role that I played in that of being a supporter, of being a teammate, of, I would joke that like when my husband was in Under Armour, we were an Under Armour family. When my husband was there, we were at this family. And I'm like, but why aren't we also a Sixth Wing family? And, like how do I notice the pieces of myself that I want to nurture? And I feel like a year, maybe 2 years ago, I would have seen that and like, I don't know, like I coach, I do this, I'm a wife, I had very siloed identities. And now I feel like I love the other versions of myself that I have nurtured and given attention to. Like, I love being a spin instructor. I love driving a Jeep. I love like all these things that I go to Pilates, I make coffee. I don't know, whatever they are. I'm like, this is part of who I am. And they're all different pieces of who I am that exist outside of other people. So I feel like that's one that a year, 2 years ago, I was like, I don't even know what that means. And now I feel like I can see the multifaceted pieces of who I am. What am I working on now? I mean, a couple of these, maybe all the rest of them. I would say, I think the boundaries between work and home and the transition with intention between work and home. And I think it's one of the challenges of probably today's day and age, where I can just unplug my laptop and take it with me to the hockey rink and take it with me here. And then we have this little teeny phone that's really a mini computer. And how do I choose to not pick it up? And I think that the more overload, the more weight that my chains are feeling, the more I go to, I'll just work more instead of, you know what? It doesn't need it right now. Like I'm going to leave my computer at home. I accidentally left my phone at home one day last week when I went somewhere. I was like, I had a initial like 5 minute, oh God, what am I going to do? And then the rest of the day was amazing. And I was like, you know what? Everybody will be fine. And everybody was fine. And I was like, I should forget my phone more often. I have not yet done that, but I would like to do that. So I say the first two, the S and the T.
It's very easy to establish a phone and boundary strategy when you don't have it. So I applaud you.
Hey.
And for those that are listening, the multifaceted identity, another way that we will talk about that is kind of having a third space. So if the multifaceted identity doesn't necessarily resonate, it's like we all have work and we all have home. What is another space that you go to kind of decompress and not think about necessarily work or home? And Laura, I think one conversation we've had, like all the different identities it's like you appreciate them more for when you're in that moment because you understand how it's serving you, right? Of like when I go be a spin instructor, I feel the same way sometimes as being in the reserves in the Marine Corps. Like when I put on my uniform, I understand how that identity is selfishly serving me in some ways. And it makes me really appreciate those times when I am doing it. So I know we are almost at time. John, do you have any? I was going to open it up for general questions, unless you have.
I can feel your pain, Laura. The phone thing. I did that once and started to have, as my mom would call it, a conniption fit, and stopped and went, dude. Do you see how you are behaving because you left your phone behind? I mean, I went the first 20 years of my life without a phone that I carried in my pocket. I'm like, I'm sure that I can do this. Now, I'll be honest, the rest of the day wasn't a great day where I just kind of put it aside. But it really helped me become self-aware of just how dependent that dopamine hit that that device is, you know, designed to elicit, and how again the word intentionality, Kelly, that's really what it comes down to, intentionality and that self-awareness.
I have a question because John, when you first started the Stronger, you're talking about how it used to, well, you know, putting on that body armor, you know, to be the warrior, that's what resilience meant at that time. Has anyone found that being vulnerable has actually increased your resilience? And here's why I say that, because with my store, right, I felt like I was carrying the load. I have now, again, since leadership that lifts, shared some of the load that I'm experiencing with my team at the store, saying, I'm vulnerable. I don't have all the answers. Things are a little tough right now. And the support that came back was overwhelming, so much so that I actually feel stronger. So being vulnerable to me helped me actually become more resilient.
Betsy,
Well,
kind of going back to what Bridget said earlier, where she was talking
yeah,
about thriving.
yeah.
I used to say, I thrive under pressure. So I wait till the last minute to do everything. So there's more pressure on myself because I know I'll, you know, I'll be able to power through it. And then I started to realize the strength and vulnerability. You hear it, or using I statements. I had heard that for a good part of my life. Vulnerability equals strength. It took a long time for me to actually connect the two. And
Yeah.
if I were to steal somebody's thunder here, Brene Brown's most recent book, where she couples vulnerability to courage. And she's like, I've asked everybody from a room full of special forces to pilots to whomever, give me an instance where courage was displayed without vulnerability first. That is just so powerful, the way that she presents that in her book. And I think, going back to what I said to begin with, true strength is founded in vulnerability, Betsy. And for me, it was a roundabout journey to get there, to where I wasn't just saying it, but I believed it and knew what I was saying.
Well, I hadn't read the book, so it's good to know I'm on track with the experts.
Oh, yeah. And the way she delivers it is perfect.
I think on this sort of theme too of the like, John, you were talking about the, you know, I pick up my shield and like, and then saying like I have evolved, like now I'm in a different place with it. And you use the language like a reactive position. I think one of the things when I think about resilience that I've seen change in some people and not in others is like if you're a person who like tends to take on the strain and take it on, then I think what a lot of high performers do is be like, I have to like work my way to resilience. Like I have to like effort my way to relaxation. And you're like, well, wait a second. Like if the thing you want is different from that, like is really using, and I actually think you do probably need to use it at first in the journey to get yourself started. But I think a big shift, kind of like we're saying, is this shift to like realizing, oh, wait, maybe I need to like radically redefine the underpinning, radically redefine. I don't need protection. I actually need the acceptance of the vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's what's like the real unlock. And I just think around resilience and kind of like the whole concept of creating intentional space to recover to increase performance, like that is a real challenge to people who have been rewarded for like driving forward and doing. So they try to drive through relaxing. And you're like, maybe we need to
Bridget,
think about that.
I think what we're talking about in the stronger strategy, the R, reflect on how to work best. For me, the transition from armor to muscle, that has been a recent way I deliver the mindset from a narrative perspective. But many of our listeners, maybe many of you, we've all had real burnout moments. Mine put me in the hospital. That story for another time. But what it required me to do was to take a real look at what was important to me, at how I want to live my life, and how work integrates with that. And from the armor transitioning to the muscle, it is supportive of the way that I want to live my life and what's important to me and how much pressure I want to put on myself. So for me, it all kind of all ties together.
You know what the muscle requires, John, in order to continue to perform at a high level? Rest,
Yes.
right?
What's the equation?
Stress plus rest equals growth. And so that's
That's
in
right.
that analogy shift, right? Like the shield, that there's no rest for the shield. It's like grind through, push harder, stay metal, stay strong. When the analogy of shifting it to the muscle, you are now allowing yourself to understand that in order to grow, rest is a part of this equation. I would love, just really quick, if everyone could jot down like 2 words for how you're feeling, leaving this conversation as kind of like a way to wrap it up. John, that includes you and me. And we can popcorn around the room.
Sweet. Who's going first? Or are we going to give people a minute?
I got to write down my words first, and I'm happy to go. Okay. Everyone got them? Okay. Mine's three words. Sorry. Not alone. John, how about you?
Connected to this group and relieved.
Bridget?
Mine are reflective and energized.
Betsy?
Validated, because you guys, I was doing stuff and it turns out it was all within these best practices, and excited for more, John and Kellie.
Laura?
Motivated to be intentional.
Nice.
Love it. Well, thank you. John, is there any official way that we wrap these up?
No, I thought that was the perfect ending. I would like to say, I would like to, in our next conversation, next time we find an empty park bench, is jump a little bit deeper into the biometric aspect, a little bit more sciencey, but having data, I'm data driven, having data that will show me how the efforts that I'm making are impacting. For me, that's the money right there. So I'd love to be able to talk about biometric devices and some of the content from Marina Labs next time, or if the audience has other requests they'd like to make.
Yes.
Just keep this
Thank you,
conversation
everybody.
going.
Awesome.
Thank you for
everybody, for
joining.
taking the time. See you next time.